Dear listener of the Overcoming Your Story podcast, this is your host, Miriam Njoku. So this week is the second part of the interview I had with Rosie Yeung on her podcast, Changing Lenses. So Rosie is a coach, activist for justice, equity, decolonization, and inclusion, what we call JEDI. We used to be colleagues, and then she became an entrepreneur and doing this. So in this second part of our conversation, we talk about workplace racism, how capitalist companies assimilate people from the minority. So I talk about my experiences of working as a Black African in Switzerland, how reporting racism to HR can fail the victim, like subtle experiences of racism, and how these systems push us as minorities to sometimes want to become like the modern minority to be able to survive. But then I explained that that's not the way to go. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode. And again, I should have said the same for the other episode, trigger warning, because we talk about references to sexual harassment, racism, and workplace discrimination. Well, I mean, that's my experience. So, but again, if you're not ready for that, trigger warning, okay? Um, so yeah, give it a listen and speak soon.
Welcome to Changing Lenses. You're invited to step into the lives of people on the front lines of discrimination, racism, and exclusion, to see the world through their eyes, and to hear their personal story of their fight for social justice. I'm your host, Rosie Yeung, a Chinese-Canadian, immigrant, cis-straight female with invisible disabilities, and I am passionate about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Do you also want to see social change happen? Then please join me in Changing Lenses. Each episode is hosted on colonized land that was taken from many Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. I seek truth and reconciliation with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people of Turtle Island, and I call upon us all to decolonize our thinking, not just our systems. Now please, enjoy the episode. All right. Welcome back, Miriam. Hello again. It's so lovely to see you. Welcome to part 2 of our amazing episodes together.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you. I'm glad to be back. And thank you for this space you're creating.
Yes, your first episode was so chock full of meaningful and deep and personal stories. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about your work experiences, not just your personal experiences and some of the differences living in different countries. But before we get into that, I also want to remind you again and remind our listeners that I want you to feel safe and comfortable to be honest, real, and vulnerable in our conversations. So I commit to you and our listeners that this is a safe space. And I invite you to keep me accountable to being respectful and non-judgmental, and to definitely let me know if I say or pronounce anything incorrectly.
Thank you, Rosie. I know this is very important to you, and it is a safe space. I can feel it.
Okay, wonderful. So Miriam, in our last episode, we talked a lot about your background, growing up in Cameroon, you moved to Switzerland, you talked a lot about schooling and the prejudices and racism that you experienced in that. I want to talk now about sort of kind of the next phase of your life, I guess, and specifically around the workplace, especially nowadays around the world, but particularly in North America, where this racism is quite rampant. But people don't always realize how it shows up in the workplace. And some people are even still asking the question, why do we need to have more diversity, inclusion, and equity at work? So if we start with your life in Switzerland, and maybe some of your first, what was your first experiences working in Switzerland? What was that like for you as a strong African woman?
So after I finished university, it was after I graduated in 2009. So just after the economic crisis of 2008. So it was kind of difficult to find a position. But I found a temporary position at the World Economic Forum. So it started off well because my boss was this blonde, beautiful American woman, and she was a good boss. She was relatable. She was an economist. She is an economist. She was a good boss in that I was not scared of her. And with trauma, we have this fear of authority, And in that case, I wasn't. So I wanted to do well, but she created that space where I felt comfortable. I felt I belonged to the team. I was happy seeing her when she was coming into the office because she created that space. And it's good to have that because afterwards, so I worked there for maybe 5 months. And since it was a temporary position, I was looking for work elsewhere. And I found work in a Swiss bank. That was a totally different atmosphere. Because the thing is, my trauma and translated also in a lack of self-esteem. So I kept, through my career, applying to jobs that I was overqualified for because I was so scared to apply to the jobs I was qualified for. I was like, no, but I cannot do this because I was doubting myself so much, right? Mm-hmm. And so since we are in a capitalistic system and then people expect you to look out for yourself, they don't care. So people were just too happy when I applied to certain jobs. They'll be like, because they knew I could apply to maybe like a professional job, like that. In that job it was a back office role. And I got there because I was, of course, I still don't have any backup. I don't have any funds to fall on. I need a job, right? So it's hard to get a job. It's after the economic crisis. So I get this job. I'm so happy. I get there the first day. I realized I made a big mistake. Like, I became very depressed. It was just, it was just not what I wanted to be doing. And the environment was really, for a Black person, I heard things like, you should be happy as a Black woman to have a job,
They actually said that.
Yeah. It was okay to say that. And so I just became very disillusioned. And I fell into like total procrastination, depression. But I wouldn't quit. I was still there. And then at one point, they decided to just change me from one team to another without telling me in advance. So they had I was away for sick leave 2 days. When I came back, there was someone sitting on my desk. My things were packed and put away, So I went. So Thursday, Friday, I didn't come to work on Monday. My things were put away. I think it triggered something. Now that I look back, it triggered some like rejection feeling in me very strong. And I cried and cried and cried. And I decided that it wasn't okay anymore. Mm. And I went to the HR and trying to explain to them. I asked for a meeting. And as soon as I started talking, I just started crying. I said, how can you treat a human being like that? How can you pack my stuff? I think, of course, it was bad. But I came already with such hurt of being rejected, right? And so they apologized.
HR apologized.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did your boss apologize?
He did apologize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he apologized, and but I told him I was still going to speak to HR. And from there we parted ways. I wasn't. So I kept getting into these positions where I was overqualified for, and at the same time, so my trauma was playing me in many different ways. So at the same time, I was overqualified for the role. And on the other hand, I was not being recognized even for what I was doing. Because I think in the workplace, somehow there are some people who sense other people being as vulnerable. I think there are some bosses who sense when you don't have, when you doubt yourself, you don't have your self-esteem is not where it should be, and they can actually exploit you. And I went through that a lot, where you work and then your boss would go and say to his boss that he did it, and you had spent like 5 days doing messy work, cleaning up, fixing, and you would ask for help. They say, no, we trust you, we know you can do it. And the minute it's done, they claim it as theirs. And since they're the person evaluating you, I just felt stuck. I'm like, okay, if I say something, there will be retaliation. But I'm angry because I'm not recognized for what I do. So I just felt, And I think even when I started reacting, it was already very bad for a long time, because that's the problem with trauma. You get maybe abused at work and you don't realize it even, You don't realize it because you come from a space where people treat you bad. So, and then when you start realizing it, then you become rebellious. I mean, inside, because still not showing, still trying to be but I think in all of that, we have to start talking. I think the workplace should become trauma-informed. Trauma-informed just means non-toxic, in that there's a place where you can go and say when something is wrong, and there will not be retaliation. There will actually be the issue will be addressed, in a way that you feel safe. In my workplaces, I didn't feel as if I could say something was wrong, even if something was wrong. I didn't feel that. I felt as if there would be retaliation. And sometimes I went to the HR, they say, oh yeah, but this person is in this position, you cannot do anything against them.
But I thought HR should be, okay. They should be helping you, they should be facilitating this, right? And mediating these things, right? And do you think they also felt scared that they would be retaliated against? Like, why would they say that you can't do anything?
For some people who had high positions, they're like, okay, if you make an official complaint, you're the one, you will be fired. You will lose your job. You cannot do anything against this person. You're just gonna hope that things get better or they change or something. And it just makes you feel, it made me feel kind of hopeless. I'm like, this sentiment of helplessness that I had from childhood, these kind of situations where you try to reach out for help like going to the HR is already so stressful, right?
Yes.
And then you hear that, and then so you retreat back, because if they tell you, okay, if you make an official complaint, it will come back, and then you'll be the one to lose your job. You don't do anything. And I don't think it's okay.
And I just want to remind people, too, that you said this was right shortly after the economic disaster of 2008, 2009. So at the time we're recording, this is just over 10 years ago. We're not talking, 1950s. We're not talking 30 years ago or in the 80s. This is only about 10 years ago that this was happening. And there's people who are saying that they have been in the field of diversity and inclusion in work for 20, 30 years. So I'm not questioning their credentials. I'm just saying that the work has been ongoing, and yet even 10 years ago, this very blatant stuff was happening. I'm picturing, especially white bosses, employers, saying, "Oh, but what do you mean we're abusive? We're not abusive," because they picture abuse as physically beating people or maybe cursing at people. And I'm guessing they didn't, actually use profanity against you, but it is still abusive. And even that whole packing up your stuff and moving it, it was like, oh no, that's just a normal department transfer, right? That's okay. What do you think it is that they, in their minds, why would it? Sorry, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question. I guess how would you show people that are kind of oblivious to the ways that they are abusive, why certain things are not okay? Like, what maybe some examples you can give of how you felt abused by your employers, but they may not have seen it as abuse.
for example, let's say on the first day of work where there's an intake, there's a little party for the new employees. So there are like 40 employees, so they're serving little, how do you say, bites to
Yes,
eat.
canapes.
Everybody, canapes, and everybody has a glass of wine, and it's all.
Oh, wow. Swiss banks must be nice.
Yeah. And one of the owners of the bank stands there in front of everyone and says, "Mademoiselle, where are you from?" Then everybody stops talking because they're curious. They want to know. That, wow,
Were you the
and
only
it's
black
not only
person?
for me. Yes, I was the only black person. It was not only for me. He didn't, okay, even if he came to me, it wouldn't have been okay, but at least, but he stood and made like a loud statement for the whole room. "Mademoiselle, where are you from?" Everybody stopped talking. There was no chatter anymore. Everyone was waiting for my answer. My mind just came up with something. I said, "Oh, me? Oh, I'm just from London. I just finished from the London School of Economics." Because I knew he wouldn't dare ask me, but where are you really from?
Right. I actually thought so he didn't go that far. I thought that would be the next question too.
No, so I paraded, I didn't understand. And then I said, "No, I'm just from London. I was just finishing up my master's. I just came back." Then, so he just let it go, But, that's, how do you feel safe when in a room of 40 new employees, you're put on the spot like that? And many other instances. At one point, we had like a ski weekend that the work organized for everyone. So I went. Oh my God, I was not feeling comfortable at all. But anyway, so there was the Saturday night party. The theme was Mille et une nuits, 101, the Arabian Nights, right?
Oh yes, 1001 Arabian Nights.
Yes, thank you. So we had like kind of Oriental outfits and stuff for the theme of the night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I never felt so uncomfortable as in that place. So as soon as we entered the venue of the party, one of the associates of the bank came to me and told me in English, "Oh, we are so happy when our colleagues from Nassau, Bahamas, come to the ski weekend. Well, we are really very happy when they make the trip." And then so because for her in Geneva there were no black people. If there was any black person in the bank, they must come from the Bahamas because they had an office there. But actually there were a few black people just in the mind, and there are many black people in Geneva. The UN is in Geneva.
Yeah.
Just right. So and I was with the only other black colleague, another woman. So I replied to her in English. I said, "Oh, thank you. And my name is this, and my colleague's name is this." And then after I switched to French, I'm like, "Actually, we are from Geneva." And I told her that in French. You know what? She went silent. She didn't, because all the bias, all what she thought, all what she assumed was just floating in the air as we stood there. She didn't know what to say. She just stood there looking at us. I was looking at her. And then at the end, I just made a joke because I said, "Oh, your outfit is very beautiful. I like the colors, how it was, Then she said, "Oh, yes, my outfit." So she started talking about her outfit because in that moment, all her prejudice, all her kind of latent racism was showing. And I didn't want to just correct her, say, "No, we are from Geneva" at first. No, I played her game. I spoke in English, made her thought she was right. And then I told her, "Actually, we are from the office in Geneva, where she goes to too, So I don't know. These are little things, but it makes you wonder, if your leaders, they're like that, how can you flourish in such a place? when I kept asking to change positions, and my bosses would say, you should be happy you have a job. Many people like you, they don't have a job. They wouldn't even have a job here. So I just had the impression that when I was in university, after that initial 3 years in Switzerland where it was super hard, and then I started high school, university, I felt as if my achievements could make me transcend prejudice and racism. And when I came to the workplace where it was like human relationships, it caught up with me without telling me beforehand it was coming. I saw that actually I will never be Miriam. I will always be the Black girl first before Miriam Njoku. And that put me in a deep depression, I wouldn't lie to you. Because I said, okay, there's actually nothing I can do. I cannot achieve my way out of this, out of being seen with prejudice. I cannot speak good French perfectly and whatever. And then people will say, will consider me. Actually, I understood that there's nothing I could do to escape this prejudice that they had built. And that's how they view people like me. One other thing I want to make important is that I learned to distinguish between people who only saw me through the prejudice and people who saw the real me. So at work, I always had friends. I would only get close to people who saw me as a human being, as I saw them as human beings. The other people, if you're not my boss that I have to deal with you, for me, you don't exist because you don't see me. Why would I, But it's very painful to be navigating spaces like that people don't bother to get to know you. They know about you without even asking you, hey, what's your name? It's tiring.
You know what, Miriam, as you're saying this, you're hitting a chord with me because I've reflected on my life that in Canada, where I've grown up, my closest friends, my closest coworkers, the people I relate to the most, were not white. Many of them were East Asian or South Asian. And at one point, I felt bad. I was like, am I being racist because I'm more friends with people that are other immigrant kids or a different culture? But I just felt like I could relate to them better and they could relate to me better. When you talk about in your workplace and figuring out who you could trust, who you could not trust, and who you could be even good colleagues with, let alone friends with. I hate to say it, but like, what race were they? Like, did you have white friends? Did you have Black friends? Like, what was the mix, I guess, of who were the people that you felt you could trust?
I had white friends out of work. Like I had a Black friend at university, and she had a group of friends, most of them white, and they became my friends when I got closer to her. But at work, at the bank, my closest friend was this Swiss girl. Her family had immigrated from Vietnam. So Celine, she was like my sister. So, yeah, I could totally be myself with her. We like to eat this, the cafeteria there, we ate steak on this day, we ate this. We were just like ourselves, and it was a space where we could be ourselves. We created a little space where we could be ourselves because even at the public functions of the bank, you would have men say really nasty things to you, like, I don't know, that they wouldn't dare tell a white female colleague. They would come and say how you look like this, or like really
sexist and harassing things. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we had a space where we could talk about those things together. We could process what was going on around us together. So, and we needed it to stay like that. Not, we needed it to stay like that, because if not, it's just as if then the self-doubt is just drowning us, because we always wonder, is it me? Am I too sensitive? Maybe this is normal. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's me. And then actually it's at all not normal. And we had that space. We could debrief. And another colleague I was close to too, she was part Tunisian and part Swiss, but mostly Tunisian. So there was also this understanding, this support, this with a look, we knew something was going on with her, or she knew something, and would find time to go and debrief. Yeah, so it's not that. Now that you make me realize, I didn't realize that my friendships were mainly immigrants. Because the people we could go talk to and the authorities we could go talk to, they would tell us there's no problem. They would not see a problem with someone telling me, you should be happy you have a job. People like you, they don't have jobs, It's like a white person telling you there's no racism. That's how Switzerland is. White people telling you there's no racism in our country. Yeah, but you are not Black. You don't receive racism. So on the daily or the everyday. So how would you know? No, we are neutral. We are in this country. There's no racism here. That's even till today, that's the discourse.
Yes.
And it strikes me when I watch TV and I see, they're talking about a part of the world. They could be talking about Myanmar or Cameroon, and they have a panel discussion, and you see like 4 white men talking about a country from their comfortable homes in Paris, Geneva, with their nice cushions, being the experts on a country where you have 60 million inhabitants, 70, you couldn't, in those 60 millions, find an expert to talk about that country. That today, for me, is I find it aggressive. When I see that, I just switch off the TV. I cannot watch that. It's something we should question. And it's the same with people telling you there's no racism. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's true. It's really powerful what you said. Now I realize that being close to my colleagues who were immigrants too, it's because we could talk about these things.
And even I think it's really important to note what you said about how you were treated as women, you and your best colleague, right, your best friend at work. Where same thing, people in Switzerland, people in Canada, Europe, North America. Well, we've come a long way in women's rights and equality. There's no more sexism, or sexism is treated very seriously now. But that intersection of your race identity as well as your gender identity, maybe white Swiss men were not overtly sexually harassing white Swiss women, but they felt, for some reason, well, we know why, that they could do that to you and to your friends that were not white as women. Like somehow that made it acceptable. And then so white women speaking about women's issues, I'm not trying to discredit all white women. That's not the point of this. But there's an additional layer when you're not white, or when you have some other traumatic identity, something that's not part of the common. And that is why it's important to talk about intersectionality and how these layers make things more complicated. It's not just on the surface. Bring any woman or bring any man or even any Black man. He can't talk necessarily about all the things that a Black woman faces. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really important for people to know.
And thank you for saying that, because what was shocking there was that it was happening at work. And I knew that it was because of the prejudice, these ideas they have about us. Because outside of work, men propositioning me, it was all the time, even when I was pregnant with my daughter.
What?
How much in Switzerland, how much is it? Do you take 100? How the first time I was a teenager, I was eating a burger at the McDonald's at 4 p.m. A guy comes to me and say, do you take 100? I went home. I didn't understand. I said, he went away. I went home. I told my mother, I said, a guy came and just told me, do you take 100? What? 100 what? What? So my mom explained to me that he thought I was a prostitute. I was so sad. But that was not the only time. It happened time and time again. When I was doing my groceries, someone would follow me around and ask me, do you take 100?
Oh my gosh.
So I became so self-conscious. I wouldn't wear for many years, all my teenage years, and I wouldn't wear a skirt. I wouldn't wear a dress because with the trauma, I was like, there must be something I'm doing. I would stop even in shop windows and look at myself, but do I have too much makeup? Why was I propositioned? But it was not me. It has never been me.
No, it's not you at all. I'm shocked. I'm horrified.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, it was. So when it happened at work, I'm like, wow, even at work where we have set rules, it still happens, Not proper, but yeah, like these,
Comments about your body and stuff?
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe... I shouldn't be surprised, but you are surprising me. You know what I'm thinking? This is what I'm picturing, Miriam. Every Christmas time, end of December, The Sound of Music, in North America anyway, The Sound of Music always comes on as the Christmas movie. And I think about the end when Switzerland is seen as the sanctuary, right? The safe zone. Oh, terrible Nazis are persecuting people, but go to Switzerland and you'll be safe. But that Von Trapp family was white. And they probably felt safe because they were white people going to a white country. So the Nazis were made out to be the bad guys. Switzerland was made out to be this hero, this rescuer. And not trying to say that all Swiss people are bad or all white Swiss people are bad. That is not the point either. But it is very important that we get rid of this stereotype about Switzerland being all good, only welcoming and neutral, no prejudices one way or the other. That's not true. You're revealing very clearly that's not true.
Wow. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. I know that Swiss people were not like this. I did not only have negative experiences in Switzerland. I had scholarships. I had many opportunities to build myself, but there was no space for me to exist, to thrive, to be free as a Black woman. That space didn't exist for me in Switzerland. The space for me to be free, to go out of my house, not care about my hair, my makeup, if someone would judge me, or it was not there. I lived on guard for many years. Of course, it comes from trauma, but it also comes from the way the society was, the things that were thrown at me. Mm-hmm. If people keep asking me, is it 100? I will not go out dressed as I want because I'm trying to hide. I'm trying to be there, but not there, so that someone would not come and say something to me. So, Switzerland gave the right to vote to Swiss women in 1972. So that's very, very telling. Yeah.
That's very late. My goodness.
Yeah. Or 71. 71 or 72.
Right. In the 70s. That's super late.
Yeah. It's one of the latest in Western countries. So it shows already that it's a very patriarchal system where women, as soon as they have kids, in terms of career, it's very hard for them to come back to the workplace, to move up. I used to, when I was already working in one of the banks there, I would hear my bosses interview a young woman and say, and come and discuss in the open space. No, we cannot take her. She's 29. She has a boyfriend. She's going to have a baby in the year. We cannot hire her. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like normally, openly, they're discussing that. So, yeah.
Well, and all that changed when you came to Canada, right? Because we don't have racism in Canada.
You see, made me cough.
Yeah, maybe you might need to take another drink before you continue the story, because I am sure that like the Von Trapp family fleeing the Nazis, going to Switzerland, when you left Switzerland and came to Canada, everything was great. You never experienced racism again. Isn't that true, Miriam?
Well, not exactly.
Tell us about that, please.
Yeah. So first, I lived in Parkdale in Toronto. That's where originally many Tibetan families settled there. So they made my moving to Toronto wonderful. I learned a few words of Tibetan because my second daughter in daycare, her caregivers were mostly Tibetan, so she knew a few words in Tibetan.
Amazing.
So I had to learn how to tell her to go to sleep in Tibetan, or calm down in Tibetan, and a few words. And so it was. I loved it there in Parkdale. I felt freer than in Switzerland. I was not on guard every time I left my house to behave like a model citizen, because as a Black person, there's always someone who will tell you that's not how you do it. You don't walk on the lawn as they used to do in Switzerland all the time. So I dropped this stress of being a model citizen because you're observed, and so that stress slowly went away, which I really appreciate. I didn't feel the need to look perfect all the time. But I realized that there's racism in Canada. It's so I found Canadians when I arrived open, they can easily have conversations, because the Swiss, they are very reserved. They don't speak so easily to people they don't know.
Right.
But I realized that for example, I can give you an example in Parkdale. My daughter was doing a ballet class. It was $300 a year for the class. And when we went to the end of year recital, so it was a ballet school. They had like different levels, different classes, I don't know, hip hop, ballet and stuff. So at the end of year recital, you saw that even though Parkdale, there's one part where you have those condos, immigrant families, and there's a part where you have houses. It's not far from Roncesvalles. So at that recital, you saw that most of the kids were white.
Right.
95%, I would say, were white kids. So that's when already I said, here it's a bit more subtle, but there's racism here too, because I wondered why the kids who lived there around this community center where these classes were not enrolled in ballet. I'm like, okay, maybe for some families that fee of $300 is already too much,
Absolutely.
Maybe the parents are already working. At that time, they cannot bring their kids to ballet. I saw, and then even in the moms who came there were some we became great friends, and we are still in touch today, But there were some, you would say hi, they wouldn't say hi back to you. They wouldn't reply to you.
They wouldn't even answer.
No, they wouldn't answer. And some, they wouldn't answer, but when they heard me speak French to my daughter, then I became interesting. I was worthy of them trying to say hi to me. And in that case, I never say hi back. I'm like, because I saw that in the West, that's something that always disturbed me. The human being is not valued until, or in capitalism, let me say, not the West, in capitalism. Someone sees you, they have a prejudice of what they think you are. And then maybe they see that, you went to this school, you speak this language, then you have value. Then now they want to speak to you. That, for me, is, oh my goodness, repulsive. Repulsive. I feel as if you should give a human being a chance. You can connect or not connect. That's fine, but not that you give them a chance or whatever based on things that you define as making a valuable human being. because in my upbringing, my great-grandmother, she couldn't read and write. I can tell you that she was a very valuable human being. And many other people I know who cannot read and write. But it doesn't make them less valuable. They have other things they bring to the world, their instincts, their knowledge, their ancestral knowledge. So this is something I always struggled with in the West. So when I made those encounters where people initially, they don't want to speak to you, and then maybe they see that, oh, you're educated, oh, you can speak French, you're in Toronto, but then all of a sudden my child is starting French school, maybe no, I don't want to practice. No, sorry, I don't want my daughter to practice French with your daughter. No. So I noticed those, it was subtle, but I noticed those differences that I live in a neighborhood where mostly immigrant families live in. But when it comes to this ballet school and the reciters, most of the kids, 95% of the kids were white, not reflecting how the neighborhood, but reflecting more the other side of where you had houses where it was more, it was closer to Roncesvalles. So, so it made me already realize that Canada, okay, all right,
Miriam, that's a powerful example. I really, there's so many implications in there, because I completely agree with you too about another intersection, right? How capitalism only sees people as tools or human resources, literally, to make money. And so those white women who, they didn't want to talk to you until you had until they had a use for you. And that use for you was that you could help their daughters get ahead by practicing French. And there's capitalism behind that too. So I bet you I think this is also where people need to recognize that sometimes I hear people say, oh, I'm not racist. I have Black friends, or I know Black people. I work with, Asian people, Black people, whatever it is. But I wonder in what context really that they have what they think are friends, or that they work with people. I don't know that, you certainly wouldn't consider those women your friends, or even, oh yes, I'm in a ballet group with other white people. Like, you are, but that doesn't mean that they accept you.
As I said, I have an instinct of knowing when I'm accepted. So there were maybe 2 moms in there who I knew saw me for the person I am, and we connected, right? Because they were, I don't know, really open-minded. They were human. They were human before anything. Of course, it's when we spoke later that I knew that one had been to Harvard, but she didn't come to me saying, I'm graduated from Harvard. And no, she tried to connect first. And then, of course, like we learned, we came to interact more, hang out a bit after ballet with our kids because they liked each other. And then we learned more about each other. That I found invaluable. But the human resources, that tool aspect, it's really, really difficult, especially when you're a trauma survivor and you already struggle with feeling worthy and not feeling like a number or just a cog in a system, It's hard. It's hard,
Miriam, I want to ask you about another intersectional layer, like when we add on some of your past trauma. You've spoken before about your workaholism, right? And I'm connecting between both like what you've said around your perfectionism. You want to perform well for people, your identity coming from your intelligence, your education and whatnot. And then add on to that how you are at work, or how much you work and how you work at work. Can you talk a bit about how that all came together for you and what it was like for you working in Canada? Like what was that like? What was the experience of working in Canada?
I think in my work, in my job description, there was being able to manage ambiguity. Maybe I should have inquired more, because it turned out that that was not my thing. Let's just put it mildly like that. Because when there are no rules, kind of, you don't know what is expected of you exactly. You keep making suggestions and then you hear, no, that's not it. But no one can tell you, this is what we are looking for. It's really very confusing. And even though you know it's okay, there's still a part of you that always doubts that maybe it's you not understanding. Maybe the problem comes from you, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I found that very challenging. And I found that in Canada, in the workplace, there's many, to hear the real version of things, of what's going on in the workplace. You have to talk to people offline in corridors, drink a coffee. In meetings, all what is said, sorry, but I just found that it was not the truth, because people were just so scared of saying what they thought that. So we have a meeting where we are deciding on what we want to do, but people are not saying exactly what they think should be done. And then, so I took this habit of talking to people. I didn't bother with people that I couldn't connect with, but I connected to many people because that's the only way I kind of understood. I could feel in my workplace that there was a history I needed to understand in order to understand my job. And I wouldn't learn that history in meetings. So I connected to many people. And another African woman like me gave me, told me the background of my position and how it came to be created. And that was very helpful. And how like there were two things. So I created many relationships with my colleagues, but I had a hard time understanding the direction of the work I had to do. And it was confusing, and it was, I don't know, and then I find myself again in that position where I know I'm not seen as a person. I know I'm not seen as a human being. I was hired because I needed a job, and then I thought, okay, maybe I should take this entry-level job to be safe, to make sure that I'm hired. But that I was hired with the notion that I didn't know my value. I didn't know what I was worth in the workplace. And I wouldn't say to be exploited, but that's how it kind of felt like. And when I started speaking up and saying, hey, actually, I started telling my truth. I'm like, I know that this is not the position I should have been hired in. I know the work that I do is 2 levels above this position I was hired in. And actually, I was coming out of postpartum depression. I was suffering from a lot of anxiety, and I couldn't see how I could do the work I'm actually doing now. So how do we shift things around to make it, to put me maybe in the position of the job I'm doing? And it was met with a lot of resistance,
What kind of resistance, like how did that resistance come out?
For me, it came out a bit manipulative, where I was being convinced that no, you're wrong, you're not doing so well. And I knew it. I knew I was doing well because I was working with many other people, and I saw what I was doing compared with what other people were doing. So I knew. So this time, I think, I don't know. The self-doubt did not shut me down. The self-doubt did not be, oh, okay, maybe they are right. I'm like, no. I know. I work with other people. I see what I do. I see what they do. And I see what is asked of me and the meetings I attend. So it cannot be that. But there's no space like to correct it. It was as if where you put yourself in this position, you have to bear the consequences. And I don't know, I just feel like in the workplace, I just feel like if there was space for me to say what I thought and then have my the superiors consider what I was saying, like honestly,
Mm-hmm.
it would be more motivating to work. Because for already, as a trauma survivor, waking up, taking that shower, getting dressed, putting that makeup and showing up in the office with a smile, it's already a victory in itself.
Yep.
It's a victory in itself. So when you don't know what you're doing, there's no direction. And at the same time, I was documenting everything I was doing just to be sure that we will not say, oh no, you didn't do anything, which happened. I'm like, no, look, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did, I don't know. I just felt like, it just felt like, it's, at one point I told myself, oh my God, one of my Swiss bosses and my Canadian boss is using the same language. It must be the capitalist language, but I'm just fed up of this bullshit, to say the least. This is not serving me.
What kind of language?
Oh no, you still have to work harder. I just feel as if some bosses, they know when you suffer from low self-esteem. They know. And if you're like me, you don't aim for the jobs because you're scared that you cannot do the job, you're doubting yourself, and you aim for those other jobs. They will just exploit you because you just put yourself in that position. And when you start asking, but I see that these other people, they do this, but I do this, maybe we should change my job title. Say, oh, no, you're not there yet. You think you're doing well, but you're not doing well. And the difference with Switzerland is that this time I didn't believe it, because I knew that, maybe with time I had I had some awareness on the work I was doing, and also when there's no direction, you cannot be perfectionistic in that you try this, it doesn't work, you try that. So it puts a lot of stress and anxiety. So I went to work, I was very, very stressed and anxious, trying to perform on things that I didn't understand, or, it was confusing. But I saw that.
I completely can understand, and especially your point about it feels exploitative. And I can also picture the instinctive reaction from many employers and white people saying, no, I'm not exploiting. How to help them understand, like, how would you respond to a employer saying, well, how are we supposed to know? Like, we don't know that this person had all this trauma in their past and there's all this stuff that comes with it. Like, are we supposed to read people's minds and cater to every person's situation? Like, how we feel like we're listening. So how are we supposed to know? Like, how would you respond to an employer saying that?
I would say, if you want to know, you can create a safe space for an employee who has trauma to tell you. They wouldn't tell all your trauma, but they can tell you, for example, they suffer from anxiety. I did share that at work because it was just, I felt the need to say that. I couldn't just hide and try to be perfect anymore. It was really eating me up inside. Actually, the hiding comes from not feeling safe to say something. That's where the hiding comes. It's not. At one point, of course, in the beginning, I didn't want to say anything, but at one point I could have said stuff, but the space was not there. I always feared retaliation, and retaliation there was if I tried to say something. So when you don't have a backup, you don't have money to fall back on, or a parent or an apartment, if you lose your job, you can go stay with some. You try to not say anything because you want to keep your livelihood, especially if you have children. What I was always wary at work is not to make my boss understand exactly my living circumstances, because I just felt like I saw them use it against people, So I was very careful, especially when I was in banking, to not even tell what I was doing during the weekend, just to not give them a sense of who I really was, because I didn't see it as safe. I saw it as they could use it at some point to I don't know, to get me out of the job or something, or to in the end of year review, and since you spend your weekends doing this, and then you're surprised. One of my bosses wanted me to work till I gave birth, because another woman had worked until she gave birth. So a man, a white man, telling me I should work until I was ready to go to the hospital.
And I bet you if your water burst on his carpet, he would have yelled at you for that too. So there's no winning.
I'm like, you don't know my circumstances. I have pregnancy, diabetes. I'm struggling with lots of stuff, I don't tell you because I don't trust you. And you think I should work because, you know better. You, of course, you've been pregnant before, right? You know better. You know what I should do.
Mm-hmm.
So that just, that doesn't build trust. That doesn't build safety, like a feeling of belonging. Doesn't build all of that. I'm not saying that work people should all be my friends. But I think really, if we want people to perform, we have to take into account the people they are. In situations where I felt understood by my bosses, I went above and beyond. And
how did they make you feel like they understood you?
I had a boss at one point who was super strict, but he was fair, And I knew this person was fair. I wrote a report. He told me it was not good enough. I believed him because I knew he was a fair person. And I rewrote the report until it was good enough. And then he told me it was good enough. So when we had things to do, I would anticipate things, do more things, and bring them to him and say, hey, there's a situation here. We have to tackle it. If not, we'll not be able to travel and things like that. But he was open. I could go speak to him.
And he was a white man?
No.
Okay, but he was a man?
Yeah, he was a man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about this because we talk about support and openness and creating safe environments. And, a lot of times it's about white on other races prejudice, and etc. But sometimes I have felt this, I don't know if you felt this, that even within my own culture community with like Asians and other Asians and women with other women are not as supportive, especially when you think you're a woman or you're Asian, surely you would understand my situation. But I have, my close Chinese friends saying, well, I don't know. I've never experienced racism. I haven't felt that in Canada before. Or women saying, like women professional coaches, I've heard this too, where like, oh no, it's the data shows that women only apply for jobs that they feel 90% qualified for, whereas men apply for jobs they feel 30% qualified for. So you just need to get out there and apply for those jobs. You need to get over your limiting beliefs, right? Just do it. And I'm like, have you not gone through the same things? Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are your experiences with other women or other Africans and feeling support from them?
I think they would think that we're already lucky we have a job. We should not rock the boat too much sometimes. I've heard that. And I have a theory about that. I feel as if the capitalist system oppresses us so much that sometimes we fight each other instead of being a support system for each other. We want to kind of distance ourselves from the prejudice by showing that we are not like the others. I hated it when people told me, you're not like the others. I'm like, no, I'm like the others. You see those people taking the boat to come to Europe? Those are my brothers. They're just trying to make a living. I identify myself 100% to them. Those Africans crossing on these boats to come to Europe because they're desperate. They don't see any future. Those are my people. Don't tell me because I fit your pressure, your I speak like you because I've learned to not show you how I really speak, but to speak like you. I have fancy degrees like you, and then now you say, no, you're not like the others. I'm like, no, it's survivor. I'm exactly like the others because it's kind of denying us our humanity, And but it's not many people come to this conclusion, to say that they want to feel. It's also like a personal thing. They want to feel they're different. They're a model. They are different from the mass, what people think it looks like, So, but I say like we have to get rid of that. It doesn't save us. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't. If someone still wants to have prejudice, they will have prejudice, despite us being the modern minority. But not many people understand it like that.
Yeah.
I've seen, when I see it where I just steer away from it, I've seen sometimes other African women who they're more like, they're harsher to people who look like them than to other people, They would give more grace to other people because maybe they don't want people to think like we are a group together or she's being nice because, so they have this kind of mechanism to show that, no, I don't want to be kind to her just because she's a Black woman like me,
Right.
And I find that very sad because it's kind of a system thing, pushing people to do, I don't know, weird stuff. So it's really important to understand these dynamics, to not fall in it, Yeah.
That's very rich and deep. And you have so much to offer, Miriam. We could probably do 5 hours worth of podcasts and not cover everything that you have of value, like just affirming again, you are absolutely full, not just because you have these fancy degrees or you came from this or that school. Although I think that's amazing. And I feel quite intimidated. I don't have a degree from the London School of Economics. But the value that you bring,
could have, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not going there now, especially during COVID. But the value you bring is way beyond anything that can be captured by a degree or a certification. And so I encourage people, because there's so much more that Miriam has to say. Please go and listen to her Free the People podcast, which also just, scratches the surface again, because these things could run very deep. But you can find out a lot more from her podcast, where she shares even more detail about her thinking and her ideas and her past, and her website, miriamnjoku.com. All of these links will be on our show notes page, for the Changing Lenses show notes page. And you can also find some more ideas and support for what we could do to change on the changinglenses.ca page as well. Both Miriam and I are very passionate about helping and wanting people to find relatability. Like, Miriam, if people on the boat coming over are your brothers, you're my sister. So many things. You're like,
you're my sister too.
Thank you, Miriam. There's just so much I relate to. And sorry, you said there's more that you want to say.
Just maybe one thing. I wanted to thank you for this work, because it's so brave of you. You've had a wonderful career, and to stand up and speak on these issues that are so important to you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, really. Thank you. It's amazing. This is how we are going to undo these systems that oppress certain people, because we have to undo these systems. We have to change. We should not be the only people advocating for this. And I know we are not. We need more people along. And someone like you speaking up, it gives a lot of power to that. So, merci.
Merci, Miriam. That means a lot, especially coming from you. And I'm high-fiving you through the screen right now, because we have to speak to power. We need to reclaim power that's been taken away from us, right? And I'm especially glad that you talked about capitalism as well, because like you've been in the banking sector, you've been in financial systems that are all about giving to people who already have and making the rich even richer. So yeah, we're going to have to investigate that further in other episodes and in other ways. But yes, it doesn't mean we're against money. Like we need to make money, right? You're a mother of 3. I've got to pay for my condo, right? So we have to make money, but we don't have to be the richest people in the world. That's not what it's about. So thank you for bringing
And we
that
don't
up.
have to lose ourselves altogether to make money.
Right.
We should be able to be ourselves and make money.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for gracing us with your love, just the rich blessings of everything you have to offer us, your vulnerability and your courage. I love you as my sister. I love what you're doing. And I hope that many people will be inspired and take away a lot from what you do. And if people want to follow up with you, Miriam, I know you're on all the social channels. What's the best social channel to get a hold of you today?
Instagram _Miriam Njoku or LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm also on all of them. Like,
yes.
Twitter,
yes.
Facebook.
Yes, wherever you are, listeners, that's where Miriam is too. So go find her, ask her your questions, find out how she can help you if you're also on your healing journey or want to share, just share stories. Like we need to also talk more safely, right? About the truth that we see that we can't talk about at work because we are afraid of losing our jobs or whatever. So yeah, we're here. We're here to listen.
Yes,
awesome.
Definitely.
All right, Miriam. Well, I hope, I just hope that we get to do this again. And I support your work, and I know you support mine, and we're going to make changes together.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, Miriam. Thanks for joining us. I hope we helped to change your lens and expand your worldview. This episode was produced and hosted by me, with associate production by William Liu and post-production by Q9. Until next time, I'm Rosie Yeung, your guide to changing lenses.